Hey everyone, welcome back to Factor Fictional. I am your host, Veronica Belmont, and this is the show where we look at the cool tech and science from your favorite TV shows, movies, video games, comic books. Am I missing something? I don't think so. But anyway, we look at all that great stuff and ask, is this really possible? And if not, why not? Last week we talked to the fabulous Dr. Jim Kakalius about the physics behind Superman, specifically speaking, Man of Steel, the big summer blockbuster that just came out. Overall, we decided, yeah, it's definitely on the fictional side of things, but there are a few things that could potentially be real if there were aliens, and if they came to our planet, and if they looked like humanoids, and okay, that's a lot of ifs. And you guys had some comments about it as well. Skoinva, I love your names, you guys, said, agreed about super responsibility. In the last movie, Superman put a semi-truck in a tree to get back at someone. Doing this was simply wrong. I wanted smart, funny, classy. I felt like he was dry, depressed, and reckless. Hopefully he cheers up in number 2. I agree with you. I mean, I get the whole thing that's been going on recently with making superhero movies a little more dark, a little more gritty, a little more realistic, but at the same time, he's Superman. Superman is like the pinnacle of human goodness, I guess. He's a role model. He's something that we're all supposed to look up to. And they definitely touched on those themes, but at the same time, it kind of showed his humanity because, I mean, humans, we can be sometimes pretty petty, we can be sometimes jealous, and I would understand, hey, if I had those abilities, I think there'd be a few more semi-trucks wrapped around trees. I think the crew here can probably attest to that once in a while. But anyway, we are moving on to a brand new subject matter this week. A lot of you out there are playing The Last of Us. I haven't had a chance to, I know. No spoilers, please. There will be no spoilers in this episode because I'm not gonna ruin it for myself and not for you guys. We have a fantastic guest on the show. His name is Tommy Edison, and you can see him on YouTube on the Tommy Edison Experience, and we're going to talk about the echolocation that the zombies in The Last of Us use to hunt down me and you. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, for those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I do movie reviews as the Blind Film Critic, and I also have another YouTube channel called the Tommy Edison Experience, which I talk about my life and, you know, about being blind and things like this.
Now, what inspired you to start making YouTube videos?
Well, it's funny. You know, we were sitting around one night, my friend Ben and I, who directs and produces all the videos that you've seen, talking about movies, and we just, you know, had the idea to do movie reviews from a blind perspective.
Now, of course, we brought you on the show to talk about echolocation today, and I was curious, do you use echolocation in any way in your daily life, if at all? How do you work with that?
I do use it. I use it probably more than I think I do, but you know, it's pretty good for it, but the name is like echolocation. It sounds so giant. I just call it my fifth sense.
So echolocation, of course, is the act of emitting a sound and then listening to the echoes of that sound bouncing off of an object. That sounds pretty difficult for your average human to do.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think that if you knew what you were listening for, I mean, you would hear it in place, like for example, when you're driving around in traffic, right, and you pass like a bunch of stores, let's say, you can sort of hear the sound change as you are between stores. In other words, it sounds different in front of a store than it does when there's nothing next to your car.
So do different objects sound differently depending on what kind of environment they are? Like if you're inside and there's a big bookcase, can you tell where that is, or a parked car, for example? How specific can it get?
I can sort of distinguish between a couple of things, but I couldn't tell you exactly what something was. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Is it less viable in a crowded environment like a busy street? Does it become unusable at that point?
You know, it can. We did a video about crossing the street, and we crossed the street in 2 different towns, in the town where I live and then in Manhattan. And it's very busy. There's a lot to listen for. And really, as I'm crossing the street, I'm more concerned about, you know, is there anybody coming in front of me?
I imagine it would be very difficult to differentiate between, for example, a human versus a solid object. Are there any cues other than the person moving around or speaking or breathing that you would be able to use?
I don't think so, no. I think for humans, it's, you know, it's all about them. Because, I mean, it has to be sort of large in order to, you know, have sound bounce off of you.
What other senses would you use in that kind of situation to kind of get a sense of what's around you in your environment?
Touch really is important because, you know, you were talking about, could I tell if it was a human? So let's say like there's a human or a post next to me and I'm not quite sure what it is. So I would just, you know, maybe tap it with my stick, and like if it answered back, I'd probably know it was a human.
That's great. What kind of environments would you say echolocation is most valuable in?
So let's say you tell me to meet you someplace for lunch, right? So you say, you know, now you go down this street here, and at the light you want to cross, and then it's going to be your third place on the left. So I could tell, you know, I can hear the difference between whether there's like a store next to me or a doorway.
Now, I haven't played The Last of Us just yet. I know a lot of my friends have, and it seems like the zombies in that game, you know, they definitely use echolocation to get around. Do you think that's something a typical zombie would be able to do? Or is that, you know, once you kind of go down the zombification path, perhaps you're so unaware of the rest of your senses other than that undying thirst for human flesh and brains that maybe you wouldn't be able to focus so much on the echolocation part?
You know, I think because, well, the way you put it there, I mean, I think that thirst for human flesh and everything would just be overpowering. So, you know, that would be your main focus. So, no, I don't think you'd be paying attention to much else, right? You'd be motivated by, oh my God, there's human around.
Human!
Bring me human.
So I'm gonna guess that, so in real life, humans with full faculty of all their other, or most of their senses, can use echolocation to get around, especially if it's heightened.
I'll put it to you this way. I wouldn't trade my stick for it. You know what I mean? I'd much rather walk around with a cane and no echolocation or fifth sense than walk around with echolocation or fifth sense and no cane.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it seems like zombies perhaps would not typically be very good at using echolocation outside of the fictional realm.
No, yeah, get a cane, zombies. It's fun, and you can probably ride the train for half price.
So overall, I'm gonna say that echolocation is fact. I mean, it is a real thing, and even humans can use it to some effect, but it's probably fictional for zombies.
Yeah, I'd go with that, sure. Sold.
All right, awesome. Tommy, thank you so much. Where can people follow your work online?
Oh, please. You go to tommyedison.com. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook. I'm all over the place. And I have an Instagram account too. You should check that out. It's quite fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, obviously echolocation is a real thing. I mean, take a look at bats and shrews, whales even, all sorts of animals out there in the world use echolocation. And though humans are not great at it, we can definitely do it as well, which is very, very cool. Though, as Tommy and I said, zombies, I think they have lost some of their faculties in that regard. I think they are pretty much just motivated by that hunger, that bloodlust to kind of, you know, eat us mostly. But anyway, what are you gonna do? And if you guys have any suggestions for the show, I always want to hear about them. Either tweet at me at Veronica or leave a comment in the YouTube video in the comments below or on Google+, Facebook, wherever you can find me. And hey, next week, we are having our very special Pacific Rim episode with Daniel Wilson. I am so excited. It's gonna be like a trip back in time because we actually did the episode a long time ago. So like my hair is probably shorter. I probably look like 5 years younger. It's gonna be awesome. It's like using the TARDIS. And make sure you come back to youtube.com/techfeed every Friday for brand new episodes. I'll see you next time.